Hello, fourth graders. I am here with chapter 10 of our Read Aloud Beyond the Bright Sea. The man stopped dead at the sight of us, his gun coming and then, just as quickly, sagging again. We must have presented an odd picture. Big Osh, Miss Maggie, and me. "What are you all doing here?" he said loudly, coming forward quickly now. He talked with an accent I didn't know. Not a foreigner exactly, but not from around here either. He was a big man, bigger than even Osh, with a square head and a flat, ruddy face. Neither young nor old, dressed in land colors head to toe. "What do you want?" he said. "I'm Maggie, this is Daniel, and this is Crow," Miss Maggie said, smiling hard as I joined them. "We were out sailing from Cuttyhunk, and thought we'd have a look around. You don't mind, do you?" The keeper did not return her smile. "I certainly do, and so do the birds," he said, "and I'd rather they didn't." He glanced up at the hospital and suddenly turned away, talking as he walked. "Come see here," he said, beckoning. We followed him to the edge of the bluff above the rocky beach. "Cormorants," he said, pointing toward the big black birds perched on the rocks below. "Herring gulls, terns, pipers, plovers, yellowlegs. I'm the custodian, the gamekeeper. No hunting allowed here." "Do we look like hunters?" Miss Maggie asked. "There are all kinds of hunters," he said. "Why do you have a gun, then?" I asked, "if there's no hunting here." "Big gulls eat the eggs of the little gulls," he said. "Too many geese, and I thin out the flock." "And roast them?" I asked, remembering the fire. He didn't answer. "And why do you have a shovel?" I asked. He frowned. "They should have named you Badger," he said. Osh said, "Hey," and took a step toward the man, at which Miss Maggie grabbed him by the arm, me by the hand, and said, "Well, if you don't mind us having a walk around, we'll be very careful not to disturb the birds." The birdkeeper shook his head. "Plover eggs in the sand look like stones," he said. "Too late, and you've already stepped on one." Miss Maggie nodded. "Yes, but no good mother would let us near her eggs." And the words were out of my mouth before I felt them coming. "Was there ever a baby here?" Miss Maggie squeezed my hand. The birdkeeper glared at me. "A baby what?" A baby person, when the lepers were here." He took a step back, which made no sense. "I have nothing to do with that," he said too loudly. "They've been gone for years, and soon everything they left behind will be burned. Should burn the graveyard, too, if you ask me, if dirt and bones would burn." And I was the one now who stepped back, and then, turning, walked a bit away. Osh followed. Miss Maggie said, "We'll be careful of the birds." "See that you do," he said, climbing the hospital steps. "And don't go poking about where y'all don't belong. I'll expect you off this island in short order, and with nothing but what you had when you came." I thought of the flowers plumping out of my pockets, and was glad they couldn't speak, but I didn't imagine they would sell me down the river even if they could, not to this man. He unlocked the door and turned, looking both nervous and mean, which was odd, I thought. "This here is state land, you know, not a playground." He went through and shut the door too hard. I heard him lock it, and that was that. "What a cold man," Miss Maggie said. "Hiding something," said Osh. "He talked funny," I said. "Not funny," Miss Maggie said thoughtfully. "He's from somewhere south." "I thought you said he was from Maine." She nodded. "I thought he was. I guess not." I turned toward the nearest cottage. "I want to look inside there," I said. But as I turned to glance back at the hospital, I saw the birdkeeper watching us from the window. "Maybe let's walk a while first, though." Across the island we went, single file along a trail that meandered over the rolling moor, through the beach plum and sea heather toward the northernmost point of the island. Along here again were bare spots in the ground cover. Just random things. I pointed them out. "The man carries a shovel," Osh said. "He's digging for something." "Or burying," Miss Maggie said. "Maybe carrion, so the buzzards don't come." "What's carrion?" I asked. "Dead animals, dead anything." "Must be a lot of dead anything on this island," I said. And we were upon the leper graveyard before we knew it. Around the edge was a picket fence. We opened the gate and went quietly in among the little headstones and metal medallions, all in rows. To one side there was a wooden marker with a lamb carved on it and a single word, "Morgan." "Is a lamb buried here?" I asked. Miss Maggie came closer. When I looked up at her, I found her eyes not on the marker, but on me. "That means there's a baby buried here," she said, "named Morgan. But that can't be." I knelt down and ran my fingers over the carving. "Why not?" There was a baby born here right after the colony started, but they sent him off to the mainland to an orphanage. He would be a man by now. How do you know that? The library had some notes the doctor published, Dr. Eastman. They said nothing about another baby, just that one little boy who didn't die on Penikese. Then what baby is buried here? I asked. She shook her head. I don't know. I climbed to my feet and brushed the dead grass off my knees. Can we find out? I asked. Crow, it's clearly not you buried there. Why do you want to know? Can we find out? I asked again. Miss Maggie sighed. I suppose we can try. Osh didn't say a thing. He stared at the lamb on the marker, at me, at the sea, and when he turned to leave the graveyard, we followed. We cut across the island to get back to the harbor, twisting and turning down the rabbit trails, until we reached the bluff overlooking the dock where we landed. From there, I could see a long line of bare spots all along the edge of the bluff. They looked like big round footprints, as if a giant horse had galloped along there. Look, I said, pointing. More and more, Miss Maggie said. Curiouser and curiouser. Osh said, digging, not burying. But what's he digging for? Miss Maggie said. Too dry for clams. Same thing all other fools dig for, Osh said. I knew what he meant. The mainlanders with their rods and shovels hoping for pirate gold or shipwrecked treasure. Miss Maggie mused. He didn't strike me as a fool on a lark. Mean, Osh said, and nervous to have us here. I remembered the thump I'd heard inside the hospital just before the bird keeper came around the corner with his gun. I couldn't imagine what had made that sound, but I agreed with Osh the man had seemed nervous, and eager to have us go, Maggie said. I pictured the bird keeper digging up the whole island, one plug at a time, while the terns and the plovers swooped around his head, fearful for their eggs. And I thought of the ruby ring in the cinnamon box on my windowsill. He must have to think there's something here, Osh said. Or just bored to tears, Maggie said. The wind alone would drive some people mad. I don't think he's that kind of mad, I said. I think he's the angry kind of mad. He hasn't found what he's looking for, Osh said, and he's not here for the birds, at which Miss Maggie continued on toward the skiff. We'll have our picnic and we'll go, she said, and when we're home we'll do some digging of our own. I wanted to see the cottages, I said. Some other day, she replied. We'll come back soon, won't we, Osh? To which he didn't reply. I was tempted to let the whole thing go after that. Maybe Miss Maggie was right and I wasn't a leper, whether I'd come from Penikese or not, so why worry about it? Maybe Osh was right. Even if I proved I wasn't from Penikese, the other islands might still treat me like I was a frightening oddity, for a number of reasons, or none at all. But maybe my heart was right when it recognized that sad island, those weary old cottages, that little graveyard with its picket fence and its headstones and its lamb, and most of all, that frayed and tattered letter stuck to my chest like a star. They were all connected. I thought maybe they were connected, but I didn't know how. All right. I would like to know if you were Crow, would you continue to go back to that island and try and figure out where you came from, or would you just give it up and move on? I hope you guys have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, Adams.